Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Work with What You've Got podcast. My name is Devin, aka Dina Chaitanya. This is episode number 15, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I will correct myself if I am wrong. But yes, episode number 15. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sticking around on this channel and on this podcast. If you aren't already following me, please hit that like and subscribe button, or just follow whatever page you're watching this on: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm on all of those. So yeah. So today we have a cool guest with us. Her name is Amanda. She is a spiritual practitioner and a trained transformation coach. So yes, thank you very much for joining us today, Amanda. And yeah, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
I'm really glad you could join me. I really appreciate you being here. And I guess I'm going to kick off the podcast by asking, because I'm even a little bit unclear of what a trained transformation coach actually is. Like, what do you do? How do you define it? So maybe you could share a little bit with us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I study personal transformation and I am a coach that helps individuals transform their life through empathetic listening and open-ended questions and helping by reflecting back to them to help them clearly see what's holding them back in life and how they can facilitate their own transformation from within.
Could you give us an example? What is an example of like empathetic listening and a question you may ask someone?
Yeah, so empathetic listening is listening without having any desire to impose my own opinions onto the person I'm listening to. So it's listening to hear them and not to give any sort of opinions or any sort of direction of my own personal agenda. So yeah, and I use the term reflective listening because I reflect back what I'm hearing in a way that could bring more clarity. So, for example, you could tell me something like, um, "Yeah, I'm feeling really stuck at my job, and I feel depressed with my living situation, and I don't really know what to do with my life." And then reflective, empathetic listening would be just saying back what you heard. It's like, "Oh, I hear that you're feeling lost in life. You're feeling like." You're dissatisfied with your job and your living situation, and through that reflection it encourages deeper awareness because I could say something that I heard in a different way that might facilitate, oh yeah, actually, like I do feel lost in life. Maybe I wasn't thinking I feel lost in life, but now that you mention it, so that's the goal and the purpose of transformative coaching is allowing that space for growth to happen.
Okay. So I guess I'll start off by asking just another question, and it was based on what you just said at the end there. It's so you said you help people to change things within their life, to go from one state of being into another state of being. And so in order to get someone from like point A to point B, what are some of like the common challenges that people face that you've worked with, people that you work with? What are some of the common challenges that they face when trying to go from point A to B or trying to transform their lives?
Yeah. I see often the most common challenge is attachment, and specifically attachment to expectations of reality or reality being different than what it is. Like my reality should be different than it is, and I'm attached to that idea. Also having attachments of expectations of myself or of others. So oftentimes I'll see people attached to an ideal version of themselves. They're like, oh, I should be better. I should do this or that in my life differently. And because of that attachment to that expectation, compared to where I am actually in reality, there's a gap. And oftentimes that gap is filled with things like guilt and shame. So having that attachment rather than accepting reality is often the biggest challenge I see of why people are stuck in the same rut that they can't get out of.
Okay. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate. So when you're trying to make a change in your life, at least this is how I understand it, you have to have a vision for yourself, right? And that vision
Totally.
is going to look different from where you are. So
Hmm.
how do you define the difference between like a goal and this unhealthy ideal that you maybe set for yourself, or like these unhealthy standards maybe that you have for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So absolutely, you should have goals for your life. And there's a difference between setting goals and being attached to those goals or attached to the reality that that's not actually happening. So I think non-attachment, cultivating non-attachment is the key to actually moving into transformation because you can't transform if you don't accept yourself where you're at. And in order to accept yourself where you're at, you have to be honest. And yeah, I have these, it's okay to have goals. It's necessary to have goals, and it's also necessary to know where you are because you can't get anywhere without knowing two things. You have to know where you are and where you want to go. So yes, you
Mm.
can know where you want to go, but if you can't accept where you are to start with, with a humble attitude and honesty, humbly accepting this is where I'm at and I want to change, then you'll never change because you're too attached to the ideal of where you should be.
But accepting is hard. I mean, because accepting means that I really have to be honest with myself. And that's oftentimes the hardest thing to do because there's so many layers of, how do you say it? There's a term where it's like you're telling yourself you're somewhere, but you're actually not quite there. So, for
Hmm.
example, if I could paint a picture, I used to tell myself, I don't want a relationship. You know, I used to be a monk as well. So we're in the same, we both practice bhakti yoga. So I used to live in a temple. And I used to tell myself, I don't need a relationship. But then every girl, not every girl, but some girls that I would meet, I would be like, oh, they look like good relationship material. I wonder what it would be like. And so there was this sort of like split version of myself. One where I was telling myself this is not something I want or need. And then there was this other part of me that was interested. So, yeah, coming back to the point, accepting is hard. It took me a while to accept the truth. And it did set me free at the end of the day. Like when I realized and I came to that point and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not ready for one, but I actually do want one, a
Yeah,
relationship. Yeah. And that's when things started to move forward for me, is when I could really accept, be honest and accept that part of myself. But at
exactly.
the end of
Yeah.
the day, it is hard. It was hard for me to do that. I was running around in circles, telling myself one thing, but feeling a different way. And so, how do you bring someone in like a healthy way to that point? Because you can't force someone to accept, like, even if you saw something in me, you can't force someone and say, this is where you're at. You know, you should
Right.
just
Of course
accept
not.
it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how would you go about dealing with something like that?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing is to facilitate awareness. And that's where the reflective listening really comes into play. Um, yeah, because until we make the unconscious conscious, it's going to control our life and we'll call it fate. That's a quote by Carl Jung. So coming to awareness is the first step to being able to accept because we can't change what we don't know about. And then once we can have that awareness and acknowledge our doubts or where we are in our life with honesty, then we're able to actually come to a place of growth. So yeah, I agree. You can't force someone to do that, but that's why working with a coach is so powerful because having a coach to reflect back what's happening on your conscious level can bring a subtle awareness to the unconscious layers. Like you mentioned, there's so many layers. That's what makes it so hard to come to a place of acceptance because there are those layers. So having somebody that you trust that you can work with to get to those deeper levels and layers of awareness is it's so monumentous to actually push for growth.
So how do you know if you could trust a coach? I mean, there's so many people selling so many different things, and
Oh yeah.
a lot of them are just not genuine people. I mean, I'm not trying to criticize anybody, but I've just met some people where I was just like, no, I wouldn't choose you to be someone I trust with that information in my life.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
yeah, coming from your experience, what makes you trustworthy as a coach?
Is the question what makes me trustworthy or how to find a trustworthy
Well, I
coach?
mean, yeah, you could talk about yourself. I mean, I think it's good if,
Okay.
as a coach, you're honest and like, because I mean, if you really wanted people to trust you, um, it's easy to point fingers and say, this is what you should look out for. But I
Right.
mean, if you refer to yourself, I think it shows maturity as
Yeah,
a coach and a spiritual practitioner. Because we're not just
of
talking
course.
about transformational coaching. This is actually links to spiritual people as well. How do you know which ones you can trust and which ones you can't?
Yeah.
Because yeah,
hmm
yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a great question. Well, in general, I think intuition is so important to, like you said,
Mm,
sometimes you can just look at someone and have a gut feeling. So that's
mm,
one step. The other thing when looking for a coach is to find someone that you admire, that someone that is where you want to go. So kind of with the map analogy before. So if say you're in a jungle and you're trying to get somewhere, you want to have a guide that has already been there, that's already
mm,
gone to the place you want to go, so that way you can trust that they know how to take you there. So that's why for me personally, I receive coaching from people who I look up to and admire based off of how they live their life, the principles that they follow and the values that they have, their integrity. So, yeah, so I think it takes some time to find somebody that works for you. For me personally, to answer your question, what makes me trustworthy? I value authenticity, and
yeah.
you can look at my Instagram page, which is my primary platform where I post about my journey of personal transformation and my spiritual growth. And I am completely an advocate for being honest with my followers and showing them, yeah, this is where I was and this is where I am now. And this is where I want to go. So I'm also not falsely advocating that I'm some sort of enlightened being that like has all the answers. That's also a red flag. So I think, yeah, someone that's humble and that embodies their values, I think, is how you can determine if they're trustworthy.
And obviously that would take some time. I mean, you don't just jump into
Right.
like a deep connection with that person. Maybe it would happen if they're the right person in the right circumstances, but it takes
Yeah.
time to get to know someone and to see what their
Oh,
values are
yeah.
and see are they actually living according to their values. Because no one's perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
even the big spiritual teachers up in the world, I mean, in some senses they were materially imperfect, but spiritually perfect in some senses. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's good to pay attention to those things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes,
I was also going to say there's also an element of everything is perfectly arranged by the Supreme.
sure.
So, there's also an element of like things happen according to exactly how they should happen and according to your own desires too. Like if you have a desire to have a certain coach or a certain relationship in your life, then those desires are fulfilled by God, the universe, the ultimate force that's directing everything in the universe. So that's also an element to consider.
So obviously in coaching, you're not just because there's a saying that you can only take someone as far as you've gone yourself. So you were just referring to that, like if you want to go somewhere, find someone who's sort of already walked a similar path to you, because they can like walk you through it, at least to some degree, to help you. Because I mean, I don't exactly want to be like someone else, you know.
Right.
So I'll just find someone who's a little bit similar to what I'm doing, and if they're further along than me, then great, ask questions and seek guidance and so on and so forth. So in that regard, um, how do how does that play a role in your coaching, and how does that play a role in your life? Like, what work do you do on yourself that, and how does that assist you in assisting others?
Hmm. Yeah. So regarding the work that I do on myself, so I have a spiritual practice that I do every day. And I also personally receive coaching. So I think that's an important piece is like to be a coach, to be a good coach, I think it's important for me to receive coaching and guidance so that I'm constantly improving myself as well. Um, yeah, and can you repeat the question? I'm not sure if I'm answering it correctly.
Yeah, so what work do you do on yourself and how does that assist you in assisting others?
Uh-huh, yeah. So I would say the most important work that I do on myself is chanting the Maha Mantra and also associating with devotees through reading Srila Prabhupada's books and also associating with other devotees that are following Krishna consciousness, practicing bhakti yoga. And the reason for that is because I believe that who you are is a reflection of what you surround yourself with. So I prioritize in my life surrounding myself with transcendental sound vibration through the Maha Mantra, through kirtan, through Prabhupada's lectures and books, and my circle of people that I keep around me. And by doing that, it allows me to show up as a better person in life in general, but also as a better coach, because I'm taking care of my priorities first, my priority being my spiritual health. I mean, my physical health too, of course.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Okay, so you prioritize obviously physical health, mental, emotional, spiritual health in your own life, and that helps you to show up the best that you can for the people that you're helping.
exactly.
Okay. How do you deal with someone who's of a different faith if they come to you for help? Because you're of one faith and they're of another. So yeah, how does that dynamic work?
Well, my belief is that bhakti yoga is in every faith.
Okay.
So it to me it doesn't matter if you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu. I mean, in any faith, there's God, there's a supreme being, and then there's us. So Bhakti Yoga is all about acknowledging our relationship with the Supreme Being as being a loving and personal relationship. So you can take that loving personal relationship and apply it to any faith, regardless of what it is. So the whole point of spirituality is that spirituality is non-dependent on the material. So things like, denominations like, oh, I'm Jewish or I'm Muslim or I'm Christian, that's a material distinction. It really does not affect the spiritual element of it. Like spiritually, we're all the same. We're all spirit souls having a human experience, and whether that human experience includes a certain faith or not, we're all spiritual beings. That's just absolute truth. So it really doesn't affect me. It doesn't matter like what faith somebody is because anybody can learn to love God in a personal way, regardless of that.
Yeah, and I distinctly remember something that one of our main spiritual teachers mentioned is that where spirituality is not about converting people to this or that faith. It's actually about helping them where they are to go deeper in what they're doing if they are trying to develop a relationship with the divine. So it's not to say
Exactly.
that, my faith and my spiritual path is better than yours. It's
Mhm.
actually just looking at where you're at in your own journey and saying, okay, so how can you deepen your journey? How can you deepen your faith and deepen your relationship with what you're doing? And if you want to join my faith, if you want to join what we're doing, then you're welcome. But if you
Yeah,
don't want to, that's okay too. It's actually just
exactly.
about, yeah, pinpointing an area that the person may not see themselves and saying, hey, have you tried this? Or hey, have you thought about this? Or hey, how is this going? Have you thought about this in this way? And then, getting like feedback from those sorts of questions and directions you could pinpoint someone in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's what I love about Krishna consciousness is that it's accessible and it's practical. And,
Mhm.
I was raised Catholic, so I was brought up, believing in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and I still accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Just because I'm practicing Krishna consciousness and chanting Hare Krishna does not mean that I don't see Jesus Christ as my Savior and as a pure devotee. The thing is that since I started Krishna consciousness, my faith has deepened in a way that I can appreciate Jesus Christ more because I can practically practice my faith. There was something missing before where I didn't know how to express my love for God. I didn't know how to practice it in a way that gave me results that helped me actually tune more into my spirituality. So, and Prabhupada even said himself, he said he would speak to Christians often. Um, One of my favorite books by him is The Science of Self-Realization, and there are several chapters in there where he speaks with priests, and he even said to them, like, you don't have to chant Krishna's name. You can chant the name of Christ. You can chant any name of God. There are numerous names of God, unlimited names of God. And so it's not about, converting somebody to chant Hare Krishna. It's about helping people to connect with the glorification of the Lord, however form that Lord takes for you. I mean, as long as it's bona fide, of course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you don't want to send someone down the wrong path.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
Don't
like
start
an
worshiping a
unhealthy path,
spaghetti
or
god,
an
but
unhealthy, yeah, or an unhealthy path. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. So let's go to. I have a few questions that I have here for you. So the one that's sticking out to me out of all of these ones is that you spoke about intuition earlier. So how has intuition played a role in your life, and how have you strengthened your intuition, and how can someone else strengthen their intuition and their inner guidance system? Because there's a part of us where we're faulty and conditioned, and then there's a part of us that is really trying to help us to make the right decisions. And I'm sure you've experienced that in your life. I experienced it a lot in my own life. I feel like I have a very strong intuition, and when I listen to it, I make the right decisions, especially when it comes to people. There's often times where I'll get a vibe from someone, and I'm like, okay, I got a weird vibe. So,
Mhm.
respect to you,
Yeah,
but I'll just go on and connect with others. I won't disregard you in any way, or I don't dislike you in any way, but I just got a vibe from you. So I'm like, okay, cool. You know, I'm sure there's
yeah,
more fish in the ocean to connect with. So yeah, so how have you strengthened your intuition? And what can people do to strengthen theirs? Hmm.
yeah. That's a great question. I love this question. Um, so intuition really is the quietest voice within us. So you mentioned that there's two parts of us, there's the part that is our intuition is really quiet. It's it's really the voice of God. It's the voice of a super soul that's seated within our heart. That's intuition. That's, guiding us to, make good choices, like as you said. So how I have cultivated my intuition and how I recommend anyone to cultivate their intuition is to cultivate silence. Because without silence, then you can't hear that quietest voice. You can't hear that intuition speaking. It becomes so easy to get distracted by all the noise of the mind. And so personally, that's why I take time every day to sit in silence and to just listen. And practically speaking, like on a physiological level, sitting in silence in itself is good because it calms the nervous system. Um, and it also just allows us to be more surrendered to life. So yeah, personally, like through my own journey, I've been really seriously practicing for 6 months now. And it's amazing to see the difference in my ability to hear my intuition now versus 6 months ago. Like I feel like I can really hear the guidance of Super Soul speaking to me in ways that are so tangible. Like when I'm in my japa meditation in the morning, I spend 2 hours every morning, starting at 5 a.m., just, sitting in silence and also chanting my mantra. And I'll have inspiration just come to me like out of nowhere. And it's amazing. And if I weren't to give myself that time, then when would those inspirations come to me? When would that intuition come to me? Because, once 9 o'clock hits and I go to work, like the day starts, it's very seldom that I have time to like really tune into that intuition. So, like anything, it's a practice, you know. If you want to become an expert at a sport, you have to dedicate time every day to practicing that sport. So, it's the same thing with cultivating your intuition. You have to dedicate time to actually cultivating it. So,
Yeah, it's like a tool, it's a muscle. The
exactly.
more that you go to the gym and you work out, the healthier your body's going to be. The same with the intuition. If the more time you spend, I mean, maybe it's just a choice of words, but instead of saying sitting in silence, I would say trying to cultivate stillness within you, or
Yeah, stillness.
a sense of reflection, or taking time to reflect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Stillness, reflection.
I've noted that those things, reflection, stillness, and silence, has come from me taking time to spend alone.
Yeah.
So spending time by myself, where I mean,
Hmm.
I went through a growth phase when I was some years younger, where I just spent a lot of time by myself, to be honest. I
Hmm.
wasn't really going out to meet people. The people I would meet would just be when I would go to work, or on the off, chance I would see them or something like that. But a lot of the time I just spend by myself, just doing what I do, trying to focus on what I was trying to, or what I've been building now. And I'm looking back. I mean, recently was looking back, and I was thinking, if I never took that time to sort of be by myself, then I wouldn't have had the time to reflect on who I was and these impressions that I was receiving when I would meet people, and when I would do things and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. And so I wouldn't have sort of learned to trust myself in those areas if I never spent time by myself. Because now when I go out into the world, I remember the impressions I've had through experiences, and I'm like, oh, I've had that experience before. It's a different person or a different situation, but the feeling is the same. That feeling of like, I should do this, or the feeling of
Hmm.
I should be careful here. Um,
Yeah, that's a
is
great
the
point. It's a
same,
point.
it's the same,
Mhm.
same feeling, but just different scenarios and different people and different, different, the painting is just different, but the feeling is the same. And so if I
Yeah.
never took that time to reflect on those aspects of that part of myself, I would never have learned to trust myself in that way. Because a
Yeah.
big part for me and for my journey has definitely been learning to trust myself. So
Yeah.
learning to stand on my own two feet as an individual, um, while still being surrendered to the divine, while still being surrendered to the people who are more advanced than me in whichever ways, but also learning to stand on my own two feet, because I've seen a big part of my own spiritual journey has been learning to be and I want to say the word is like the authority comes to my mind, but like learning to be an authority in my own life. So
Mhm.
learning to guide myself through my practices, and then
Yeah.
learning to trust the intuitions that I get through that process. Because yeah, at the end of the day, I'm the one that's steering my life. At the end of the day, when I die, I'm the one that had to steer myself, to the
Yeah.
next destination and so on and so forth. So no one's going to come and hold my hand.
Yeah.
Um, not that I'm aware of, at least. I don't remember dying, so
Yeah,
so
you're
yeah,
totally, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You're the expert of your own life. We're all the expert of our own lives, and yeah, how can we learn to trust ourselves if we don't spend time with ourselves, spend time alone, like you said? And I like that you brought up the distinction, silence versus stillness, and yeah, just being able to be still and are alone. Yeah, I think that's key ingredient. Absolutely.
Do you think do you coach a lot of people and come to that conclusion? Because I mean, I've seen a lot of like this. It's like a phase that men have been going through where they're saying, lock in, go ghost for like 6 months, don't drink, don't party, don't this, don't that, don't spend time with too many people, just lock in and focus. And I see the value in it because I've been through it myself. I just also see that there's maybe somewhat of an overemphasis sometimes within people become overly detached in unhealthy ways, because I mean, I was there myself where I started to realize that I need people in my life. I can't be
Mhm.
this isolated one man on my own island.
Right.
I definitely need other people's influence in my life. Otherwise it becomes too black and white.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, nothing in
yeah,
life is black and white. And
yeah.
like anything in life, it's about balance. Like it's not healthy to go to from one extreme to the other. So um yeah, I think it's just a matter of being mindful of who we spend our time with. Like we don't have to become a complete recluse, and like escape to the Himalayan mountains to find ourselves and deep intuition. And we can take small steps today to be mindful of like who am I giving my time to? Who am I giving my energy to?
Mm,
And how is it making me feel?
yeah,
Um, yeah, so I mean, for me personally, I I kind of have locked in, quote unquote.
yeah,
I've this past 6 months, I've really changed my habits and how I communicate with people and how I spend my time, and I've noticed the effects of it. I think there's a benefit to turning inward. And there are phases in life, like there are some phases in life where you have to be more outgoing and involved with people, but it's also healthy to have that balance. Like, in the winter season, it's kind of natural to be more recluse and turn more inward. So to follow like the ebbs and flows of life in a natural way is healthy.
yeah. And to honor that, to honor the change of seasons, quote unquote. Now is a very busy season, so let's go and squeeze all the juice out the lemon or the fruit, and then do what we can. And then when it's the change of seasons, then to honor that and be like, okay, so I've had a really busy season, so let's take some time to reflect, take some time
Exactly.
to cultivate something for the next journey, the next busy season. Because I've seen in my own life that the strength I've gained through reflecting and through taking time to be still and spending time alone has again helped me to become more confident, more clear, and more focused in the times that I'm busy. Because if I never had those alone times and that alone time, I would still probably be pulled into situations where I don't necessarily want to be anymore. Because there
Hmm.
are situations where I realize that this isn't healthy for me. This
Hmm.
definitely needs to be a boundary around these types of situations.
Yeah.
And yeah, so now spending that time alone and reflecting has strengthened me so that I can pick it up and I can notice, okay, I can be in a situation, but I know my limit in the situation. And I can pull
Totally.
myself out and be like, okay, I need to go and focus on something more beneficial for me because this isn't beneficial. This is just going to take me down that same road I've walked already. And
Mhm.
I know that at the end of the road, I'm going to feel like a complete, you know,
Mhm.
lost fart because I've done it already and I don't need to do it again. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the analogy chewing the chewed that Prabhupada uses a lot. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, yeah, realizing, okay, I'm stuck in the rat race or I'm stuck in this spiral of doing the same thing, expecting different results, but getting the same results. Like that's the definition of madness.
Yeah.
So
I was speaking
yeah,
about that
so
today, actually. We did
really
a Qigong, yoga, and sacred sound workshop. And
nice.
that's one of the things I was saying is that a lot of the time people tend to stay stuck in the same mind, not stuck, but they tend to just repeat the same things over and over
Yeah,
again.
patterns. Mhm.
Yeah, thinking that I'm going to get happiness through this sort of
Yeah.
this activity, and it's actually just keeping us in a cycle. We're just
Yeah.
repeating the same cycle, and that's what insanity is. It's repeating that same cycle, expecting something different to come out of it. When really we're just filling up ourselves a little bit with some satisfaction, and then we're going away from that thing, and then we're coming back and filling ourselves up a little bit,
Exactly.
and then
Yeah.
yeah, to notice that, to notice that.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
that's
that you
this
have to be,
material.
yeah,
Yeah. The material world is just all it is temporary quote unquote happiness or sense gratification. It's like, you go to the bar or you go to the party or you get the promotion at your job and then what? Okay, like it brings satisfaction for a
I,
little
I
bit, but
don't know. I don't know if I would go as far as to say that, because there is joy here. There is a sense of joy because everything here is a
yeah,
reflection of the spiritual world, right? So anything
right.
you experience here, you can experience in a spiritual way. So I wouldn't say that the material world is just as blunt as it's just sense gratification. I would say that it just needs to be used and respected in the right ways to help us to make advancement where we can.
Yeah. Well, and that's the point of Krishna consciousness is to dovetail that sense gratification
That's the point of
into,
any religion, actually.
yeah,
Not just
it,
Krishna. It's not just Krishna. It's any religion. If you really read any religion, you could
mhm,
find points where it says that you must develop, or any spiritual path is to develop a loving relationship with God. And how
yeah,
do you do that? Is to use what you can in this world, in that relationship, because ultimately, then God or the divine, Krishna, or whatever you want to call the higher power, will help you to come closer to Him through these activities.
mhm,
In our tradition, it's called Yukta Vairagya. So we're using the elements of this world and we're offering it in a way of service. So, for
yes.
instance, spirituality doesn't mean you can't have a family. You know,
No,
spirituality doesn't mean you can't work in a company or have a job. What it means is that to use those elements and somehow find a way to engage them in a higher purpose.
right.
Yeah. So, for instance, desire is something that every single one of us has.
Yeah, of
But
course.
whether we use that desire for something beneficial for ourselves and for the world around us, or we use it just to as a means to an end, that's the difference. But everyone has desire. It's not
Yeah, it's
something that any of
impossible to
us
get rid
can.
of your desire. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
because we have the reason we have desire is to direct
to do
it
things. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
your
exactly.
desire. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, okay,
I
I have
mean,
this desire to do this thing. Should I do it for my own self or do I do it to please the Lord and the, yeah,
yeah, because I mean, how if I'm hungry, I have a desire to eat something. So then I start thinking about what am I going to eat? So I think I'm going to have a sandwich. Ah, I desire a sandwich with some cheese and tomato. Great. But if I never had the desire, I would just sit there and be hungry, you know?
right. Of
Yeah.
course.
So the
Yeah.
desire is there for a reason. It's
Yeah.
just how we use the desire, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yes.
that's a common misconception is that, when you're a spiritual person, you should get rid of all of your desires and get rid of all your attachments. No, actually, those desires and attachments are going to be there. It's just a matter of what you do with them. And that's something that I see often that's so unhealthy is personally this happened to me. Like I came to Krishna consciousness and I thought, okay, like I need to like get rid of all my desires, get rid of all of my personal wants, but that made me end up falling off the path altogether because it was
Mm,
impossible to achieve that.
mm,
So I think that's where honesty comes in again, like we talked about at the beginning of the call, like being honest with myself and accepting myself. Like you said, like, yeah, I have the desire to be married one day. Okay, should I just like force that desire away and then become frustrated and angry because all I am doing is thinking about this desire and it's not going away? Or do I accept, yeah, I have this desire. Like I'm a person in a woman's body that wants to be married. Like, okay, I can accept that. And now what do I do with that? I decide to go about marriage in a way that's spiritual and find
mm.
a partner that can cultivate spiritual growth together.
And
So,
checking where you're at in terms of your desire. So, for instance, like
exactly.
understanding I may want a certain outcome, but
Mhm.
understanding I'm not there yet. So then just
Yeah.
being responsible and saying, okay, so I want that, but I'm not there. Okay, so
Yeah.
cool. Let me keep on doing what I'm doing in a way that can take me to my desire in a healthy way. And if I
Mhm.
end up there, I think that's what you meant by helping people with their attachments is that
Mhm.
you learn to let go of
Yeah.
the outcome basically.
Yeah,
So
the
I
expectation.
desire it,
Yeah,
but it may not be what's good for me. Actually,
exactly.
it
Yeah.
may not be what's good for me, but that's
And
not for me to decide because,
exactly.
yeah,
This is
I
one of my
mean,
favorite players. It's like
yeah,
to cultivate non-attachment, it's like, okay, so I have this desire, I can pray, like, please fulfill this desire. Or whatever's best for me. Like adding that whatever's best for me is so key to cultivating non-attachment because otherwise, like if I'm really attached to, having this desire fulfilled in this specific way that I have imagined it, then I'm gonna be disappointed. But having the desire, okay, accepting the desire and then praying to be unattached to the result, like okay, trusting that whatever happens is for my highest purpose, the best good, then
for example, I thought of this a while ago because I still have a coach. I'm just not actively under him at the moment, but I had a coach, and there was a part of the coaching that we did where he said that um, think of a large amount of money, basically, you know, he was using this example as a way to get me to think bigger than myself. So he's using money because all of us need money to survive in this world. So he's saying, think of a large amount of money and you're going to write sort of like an affirmation for yourself that you're going to somehow achieve this money. And the whole goal, the point of the exercise is then once you've set that idea for yourself, that you're now going to start immediately thinking of how can I achieve that goal. So you could take that example and put it into anything, you know, think of how can I be the most spiritual person I can be, you know, and and just think really large, you know, this idea. And then you're going to start thinking, and you may not end up there, but you would have thought your way into a different space. And that's what is necessary. So, but anyway, so in terms of the money thing, I started thinking about it and I was like, okay, I could think of a large sum of money that I could want in my life, but at the end of the day, that large sum may not be actually good for me because now I'm pretty solid in my practice. I'm trying to advance myself in some ways, you know, and make things happen in my life. But if I actually get to that large amount of money, it could actually be a distraction from my original purpose because everyone knows that, well, I mean, not everyone knows, but all the famous people in the world, like Jim Carrey, for instance, he said very plainly, go out, become famous, do these things, but just be careful because it's not actually what you want. And he's someone that's been there and done that and realized this is not actually what I wanted. I thought it was what I wanted, and now I've got it, and he realized it's not what I want, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was trying to get at when I was saying like that happiness doesn't really exist in this world because it's like, you know, there could always be more that we can achieve. There's always more. And like we think we want things, but then we get them and it's like, it's not exactly what I wanted. And there's always more to want. You know, even if I had all the money in the world, I'm sure I would still want more. Like it's just never ending. It's kind of like we're always constantly thirsty for something and it's like nothing can really quench that thirst. And that's how I personally realized that spirituality quenched that thirst for me. It's like being able to come to this place of like accepting reality of this world and like that I'll never really be fully satisfied with anything material, but I am fully satisfied, fully, completely satisfied with my spiritual practice. And
yeah, and I'm very careful with how I say things. So I want to just rephrase what you're saying
yeah,
for my own benefit, I guess, is that happiness is it's not that you can't find happiness here. It's just understanding that happiness here will come and go.
yeah,
There is
that's
happiness here. There is happiness. You do
yeah,
experience joy. You can have moments where you look at the life you've created for yourself and you're like, damn, I'm proud of myself. I'm happy.
yeah, of course.
But understanding that it will come and go.
Yeah, because it's a duality.
Yeah, and it's going to come and go, just like the
Yeah,
changing of the seasons. They
yeah,
just
exactly.
come and go. Yes. And then
Yeah,
there was another thing you said that I was thinking of, the way to rephrase is that um, it's not that we won't be fully satisfied here, but the way to become satisfied is by using our material accomplishments for a higher purpose. That's how you create satisfaction, true satisfaction. There's a nice one of the people I really look up to. His name is Keshav Swami. So he's a recent
yeah.
initiate into ordination. He's been ordained recently into becoming a monk or a priest of like a really high standard. And he was saying that success is only success once it is engaged in a higher purpose. Because if you only achieve something for yourself and you don't use that success for something higher, like to help others come closer to or start a spiritual journey or come closer to the divine or something along those lines, then it's just a very empty success because it's just a temporary thing in this lifetime that you achieve. And that's cool if that's what you want. I mean, but just looking at it from a large picture is that what was the point of it? You know,
Right.
you obviously would have grown through it and you would have developed your character and become something, but and then what? And then at the end of the day, and then
Exactly. And then
how
what?
far does it go? You know, how far does it go
Yeah.
at the end of it? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So coming back to our questions here, then so that was that would that whole conversation stemmed off strengthening our intuition and our inner guidance system. So now we were talking more about along the lines of like the purpose and success and so on and so forth. So in your line of work, how have you discovered your purpose and how do you assist other people in discovering this? Is that something that you do? Is it something that's important for you and in your line of work? Yeah.
Yeah. So, so ultimately, everyone's soul's purpose is the same, which is to serve God. And at the same time, we all are individual beings with our own characteristics and strengths and in which ways we can serve God. So it's kind of a tough question because like being meant to do like a specific purpose, like, oh, what's my purpose in life? Like that can kind of be egocentric. Um,
How so?
and because it's like, again, it's more material. It's like, oh, my purpose is to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. But then, okay, when you leave your body, like, what good is that? Um, so I don't think it's really that complicated to find your purpose. For me personally, like I went through a whole a whole journey of what's my purpose.
What's my
You
purpose? Today
yeah,
it's
everybody
this,
does.
I'm going to become a knight in shining armor. Then tomorrow it's this, I'm going to play ping
Yeah, it's always
pong at the
yeah,
Saturday event every month.
exactly. And like, it was devastating for me because I thought my purpose was one thing. I go to college, I get my degree, I spend thousands of dollars, and I find out I'm miserable in my quote unquote purpose.
In your purpose.
So really, I think to find your purpose is as simple as doing what you enjoy in the mood of being in loving service. So, and then
Yeah,
also
yeah,
just
yeah.
trust that you'll be guided. Like, because like you said, like one day my purpose is this, the next day it's something else. Like, I don't think your purpose is something that's set in stone. Your purpose is constantly evolving as you're constantly changing as a human being. Like, it's like,
Although
yeah,
there is like an underlying, like you said, it's there's an underlying principle to having a purpose or discovering it is that understanding that a part of our purpose or discovering what it is linking it to service.
Mhm.
So no matter what the flavor comes out as, whether I decide to be like, for instance, you're trying to share things on social media, your transformation journey and so on and so forth, and spiritual teachings, and I'm trying to do the same in different ways. And
Yeah.
so our the expression of it may come out differently, or in this case, similar,
Right.
but the underlying principle behind it is to serve in some way. So
Yeah.
whether you decide to achieve or pursue a purpose in being a doctor or a librarian or a stay-at-home mom or whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, how can I use that in service? How can I
Mhm.
use that to be of service? And it doesn't, everyone's extent of outreach may be different. So
Yeah.
some people have that personality to reach millions of people.
Right.
Jay Shetty, Russell Brand,
Mhm.
some of the spiritual teachers in our line, Prabhupada, they've had that energy, that potency to reach millions and millions of people. And then there's some people that reach only some thousand people. There's some people that reach, um, you know, 100 people. There's some people that reach my next door neighbor, and I positively impacted the people in my community. So it's different for everybody at the end of the day. The extent to which we expand, because we're basically working with what we've got, and we're working with something that is destined to us. So
Yeah,
I may only be destined to reach this many people,
exactly.
and that's great. That's where you're supposed to be.
Mhm.
And someone may be further along and reaching more people because that's just who they are and that's the
Mhm.
type of energy that person carries with them.
Mhm.
But to then still use that in some way and link it to service.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
completely agree. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So let's just go with one more question. I know you said that you wanted to keep it to a certain time frame. So just if you could, or something that you've maybe noticed with the people you've worked in yourself and just what you've observed, what are some signs that someone is aligned or misaligned with their highest path? It's a bit of a tricky question because it's different for everybody, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So kind of like I mentioned, like the soul's purpose or the highest path really is to know that I'm a part and parcel of God and to serve God with love and devotion. So really being aligned is just constantly manifesting that love for God. So however that looks for you, because like you said, it's different for everyone. But I mean, you mentioned before there are two parts to us. So like if I if I'm misaligned, then you can see in my life where my intention is that I'm serving something that's not God. Like I'm serving my ego or my own self-interests or selfish desires. That's misalignment. And you can see the symptoms of that in life. But then being aligned, being on purpose in service to the Supreme Being, then things kind of flow naturally. At least that's been my experience. So I think
I don't know about that one because I mean I faced a lot of challenge in my spiritual journey. There was a phase where I
yeah, of
was
course.
challenged very heavily, and it didn't feel like I was in alignment with anything. To be honest, I mean I felt like I was basically being dragged through the mud, and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so
because
it
like
won't always flow naturally. I don't think. I don't think.
I said naturally, but not easily, not easily.
Oh
Like
yeah, okay, that's the
yeah,
difference. Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
that's the difference. Like because
yeah,
I
yeah.
also face challenges. That's part of the journey is like having doubts, challenges, trials and tribulations, totally. Um, but I also see that in hindsight, looking back at all of those things, it was all like the natural progression to get me to a higher place. So yeah. I mean, it's a very subtle thing. I don't think I can give a straight answer of like, this is how you know you're aligned. Like, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about intuition, right? Like, you just,
And also trusting others to assist you if you doubt yourself, you know.
yeah, of
Being open
course.
with people that you can trust and that are trustworthy and just checking and saying, you know, do you think I'm still walking the right way or what do you think, you know? What do you think about
Yeah.
this and this and this, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's definitely helped me a few times just to have someone that I don't have to share everything with them, but I could share something and just get their
Yeah.
feedback, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Having a guide, a mentor. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, or a good friend or someone
Yeah.
who's you can just be open with and get some
Yeah.
feedback. And the person is going to give you some solid feedback, not like some lie. Don't worry, you're on the right path, but you know,
Yeah.
you're really not. Because they're too
Yeah.
scared to tell you the truth type of thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So having said all of that, is there anything on your mind, on your heart that you would still like to share as we just slowly start to close off this podcast or yeah.
Um, I think the only thing I would want to share in addition is just speaking to any of the listeners who maybe are struggling or trying to find their path or their journey or, find themselves. I think what's most important is to be open to being guided. I think that's really my key takeaway from my journey is the importance of surrender. Like being able to acknowledge like, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing. Um, like when I started my spiritual awakening, it was really like it came from me suffering and asking questions like why am I going through this? Why is this so hard? Like what's the point of all of this? And I think like having those questions is the first step, and then being able to surrender to a teacher who you can trust, who can help you find the answers to those questions, I think is so important. So,
Yeah, I
so
just there's many different situations that someone could find themselves in. So sometimes there isn't a teacher nearby.
right.
So still being open to receiving guidance, even if you can't find someone that can guide you directly, because
Yeah,
there
guidance
is
can come in
an
so many forms. Like
in
guidance
the
can
different
come
forms.
through
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
books, audio.
And just the fact that one is initially just open to the fact that
Yeah,
I feel like I need some guidance, that's
yeah,
already a step where it's a step in the right direction where the guidance can now come in. Because if we're in this belief system that I'm fine where I am, I don't need any help, then how can any guidance come in? Because even if the person came to you and said something that could help you, you would probably be like, I don't need that. I don't need to listen.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So it's ultimately up to us and our level of awareness and openness, which comes from then being authentic and being like, okay, I feel like I do need some guidance, which it
Yeah.
comes back to the honesty thing, right? And being honest,
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm checking myself and I'm realizing, okay, so yeah, maybe I do need some guidance. You know, and you don't necessarily need to tell others. You could just be honest with yourself. And you would be
Exactly.
amazed at how much that can push you in the right direction. Because
Absolutely.
the guidance is waiting, it's all around us waiting to come.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. There was a point where this is a video I actually wanted to make because I was doing some videos similar to you way back when. And there was this part that I never touched on, which I wanted to touch on, was that I was in a similar situation where I felt like I was just going through the motions of life and just feeling very like unfulfilled and very like I was just keep meeting the same sort of patterns and the same sort of outcomes and the same sort of like styles of sadness and suffering in my life. And then I had this moment where I just said I distinctly remember the image in my head of what I was doing. I was walking up and down my dad's front driveway and I was frustrated with a situation. I don't remember what the situation was, but I was really frustrated. And I just said very clear and very loud, please guide me to someone who knows the truth.
Yeah.
And then I feel like ever since I did that, then things started to unfold very nicely. But before that, I kept having bumping my head in a similar situations and I kept getting really frustrated because I didn't know a way out and I was just really tired of it. And then
Yeah.
that moment, it didn't change dramatically and quickly after that. But from that moment, I feel like I really started to take, I felt like I was being guided in the right direction because that led me to where I am today. But it took
Wow.
all that frustration and that you know, that just that constant
Yeah, being tired of
feeling
it. You have to be
stuck.
tired
Yeah, a
enough
bit
of it.
tired.
Finally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then it opened me up out of frustration to be like, I need something different, you know?
Yeah. To be able to
So
surrender. Yeah, it's
yeah.
amazing the power of surrender. It's truly
Mm.
remarkable.
Yeah, the power of openness.
Yeah. Openness
Yes.
to willingness to surrender. Yeah.
Yeah, willingness to swim. Yes, so if anybody who is listening wants to get in contact with Amanda, I will drop all her links down below. I'm not sure if you have a YouTube channel or if you do Facebook or TikTok. It's just
It's mostly
Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah, mostly
Okay.
Instagram. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I
So I
also
will.
have an online community. It's a platform for women that want to learn about Bhakti yoga.
Oh, cool.
So yeah,
Okay.
but those
So
are my two
Bhakti
main.
Yoga, if you aren't clear, is the art of love, the art of loving the divine and loving ourselves and loving the world around us in a spiritual way. And yeah, so I will drop those two links, her Instagram, and you can also send me the link for your community. If anybody, women specifically, I would imagine, are keen to
Yeah.
join and just see what Amanda's doing. You can check her out. She is making impact on Instagram. I've seen your videos. I've seen all your likes that you're getting. Well done. Good job. Keep doing it. Keep
Exciting.
growing. Keep transforming. And yeah, I hope that you really make an impact in people's lives in whichever way that the divine has planned for you. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, I would say just keep it authentic. That's the only thing I can say. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's my
yeah,
goal. Be
yeah.
authentic.
I'm sure you're gonna, yeah. Okay. So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, everyone, for tuning into this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. It was nice, short, and sweet. And yeah, cool. See you guys in the next episode.